Hello, everyone, and welcome to the One Mind Dharma podcast. You can visit us at oneminddharma.com. We are going to start back up our sitting groups once a month in the new year, in 2025, if you're listening to this later and wondering what new year I'm referring to. You can visit oneminddharma.com/group to learn more about it and sign up. It's a donation-based sitting group once a month. And I'll talk more about it at the end, but I don't want to waste a bunch of time at the beginning. If you're interested, you can either scroll to the end or listen to the podcast until the end. I'm a little bit sick this week. I'm getting better. My kids started school, my young kids, my toddlers, which means it's sick season for us parents. So I thought I would go with a topic that was kind of simple and straightforward in a sense, at least for me, something I'm familiar with and have practiced with, and I think I've probably taught about before, definitely in person, I'm not sure on the podcast. And that's the 5 hindrances. So bear with me as I'm still getting over being sick. I hope I don't cause too many unpleasant sounds to your ears with sniffling or coughing. But let's jump in. The 5 hindrances, I think, are something that when I first learned about, I kind of went, oh, yeah, I experienced those. And it was a little while into my meditation practice and investigation that I really heard a full teaching or Dharma talk on these 5 hindrances. But it really was a moment of, oh, whoa, I definitely have all these. The word in Pali, or term in Pali, is pancha nivaranani, which means the 5 overwhelms or covers. I really like the translation Thanissaro Bhikkhu Tanjef uses of covers, the 5 covers. Because the 5 hindrances are specifically taught as 5 qualities that cover or hinder our concentration practice. In Theravada Buddhism, I think even more specifically, the 5 hindrances are taught as qualities that hinder the right concentration, access to the jhanas, the states of concentration. And the jhanas are a topic that I've mentioned many times on this podcast and on the website, and I've never really written about or given a dedicated talk about. So I'll put it on my list of things to talk about. But for now, suffice it to say that the hindrances get in the way or cover wise concentration. And when concentration is covered, or we're not able to concentrate or focus or get into a state of samadhi, with it goes our mindfulness and our presence. These qualities can obviously arise individually, one by one, and sometimes they arise all together. I've heard it called like a multiple hindrance attack. I personally find that when I have a multiple hindrance attack, or attack's kind of a harsh word, but an experience of multiple hindrances at once, it can be quite overwhelming. So the 5 hindrances, roughly translated, are sense desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. So I'm going to go through each of these individually, but just to lay them out there. Sense desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and doubt. And sometimes when we go to meditate, we have like a super peaceful session. I think the more we meditate, or at least for me, the more I meditate, the more I find this, that sometimes I close my eyes and the settling is easy, and I'm able to just kind of drop into the practice and be with it. The hindrances aren't really present. And often when I sit to practice and I'm not really feeling it, or I'm struggling, or I'm feeling like I have to force it, it really is often because a hindrance or some combination of hindrances are present. I wrote this talk a couple days ago, and I had written down, I did a body scan meditation the other day, a guided meditation, which I don't always do. And my mind was just bouncing around like what you'd call monkey mind, like just one thing after the other, one thing after the other. And it was interesting. There was a sense of restlessness in the mind and body, and some sense of like sloth and torpor in that I'm sick and kind of lack energy in the body and mind. So kind of these two almost opposite qualities were present at once. So I was going to use that as an example. And it's a good example. But it's funny, every time before I record a talk or before I teach, we do a meditation. And today was no different. And I was doing a breath or concentration meditation, and I'm all stuffed up. And it was just very unpleasant trying to focus on the breath when you're all stuffed up. And just intense, the second hindrance, ill will or aversion. Like just wanting my experience to be different than how it was. So anyways, I'm not short on examples of the hindrances, and if you meditate, you probably aren't either. I think it's important, before we jump into the hindrances, to note a couple things. You're not bad. It's not because you're bad. There's nothing wrong with you or your practice necessarily. We all experience these hindrances. That's what the teaching is that these are qualities or experiences that we all have in meditation. Of course, they can be influenced by things, and there's things we can do to work with them. And once we're aware of them, it should be our aim to work with them, but not to beat ourselves up. So the instruction with the hindrances is in the suttas is actually the same for every hindrance, essentially. I'm going to read from a sutta, and I'll put the sutta in the show notes that you can click on. Just a note on the show notes. A couple people have emailed me saying, where do I find the show notes? If you go to oneminddharma.com, our most recent podcast episodes are right there on the homepage. Just scroll down a little bit, find the talk or meditation you listen to, and click it, and the notes and links are right in there. Anyways, the sutta reads, when a person who has sensual desire in them understands, I have sensual desire in me. When they don't have sensual desire in them, they understand, I don't have sensual desire in me. They understand how sensual desire arises, how when it's already arisen, it's given up, and how once it's given up, it doesn't arise again in the future. So I want to break this down just really briefly. It's fairly straightforward. The first part says, we know when we have sensual desire or any other hindrance, and we know when we don't have sensual desire. So the first instruction is just to know when it's present or not. To notice in meditation practice when we do have restlessness, or we are experiencing ill will or aversion. Just to know when it's present or not. And I've had this in meditation where I don't want to say it's easy, but I find it easier to notice when there is a hindrance present because I'm suffering or I'm not dropping in, as I shared. But I don't always recognize when the hindrance is not present, right? Rarely am I sitting and just randomly I go, there's no sense desire present. And I'm not defending that position or experience. I think the instruction here is to know when it's not present, to recognize it, to know how it feels. The second instruction is understand how sensual desire arises. And the same instructions go for all of the 5 hindrances. So when we do have something like sense desire where we're craving something, how did it arise? What kind of, what was the precursor? Maybe we had a thought about something pleasant and then, or thought about something, the Vedana or feeling tone was pleasant, and then we fell into craving. To really recognize the process, because that craving or that sense desire or the ill will or whatever it may be doesn't arise out of nowhere. So how or why is it arising? The third instruction is, how when it's arisen do we give it up? So how do we let go of it? I'll offer some antidotes that are taught to these things. But for example, with sloth and torpor, if I'm meditating and the mind just feels really sluggish, and the body feels really, really tired, can I do something to let go of that tiredness? Maybe I can re-energize the body a little bit by perking up in a sense. Maybe I can open my eyes and meditate. And again, we'll talk about some of these things. But how do we give it up? How do we let go of this hindrance? And then the fourth and last instruction is, and how once it's given up, it doesn't arise again in the future. So how do we keep it at bay? How do we prevent this hindrance from arising again? Not out of a quality of aversion or hatred or ill will, but out of mindfulness and knowing. Is there something we can do to recognize our patterns and habit energies to lessen the strength of this hindrance? Okay, so let's get into the actual 5 hindrances, and I'll go through each one. The first one is sense desire, or kamachanda. And this can be thought of as desire at one of the 6 sense doors, right? We have sight, hearing, smell, taste, physical feeling, and then in Buddhist psychology or Buddhist teachings, the 6th sense door is thinking, the mind. So it could be some desire for food, desire for sleep, desire for more pleasant thoughts, desire to feel the sun on our skin, desire for sex, desire for music. And I think it's important that when we talk about desire in this sense, we're talking about like a little bit of craving or clinging or tanha or thirst. So recognizing like we're hungry, I'm going to go eat, isn't necessarily harmful sense desire. But when it comes to concentration, these things actually can get in the way of concentration. What happens when we experience sense desire is we get carried away sometimes by the craving or clinging, craving more pleasant experiences. We want things to be other than how they are. One of the ways that this arises in my personal meditation practice is when I am sitting with concentration, I often find my mind and body craving more concentrated states, more ease, more peace, both in the mind and the body. And as I'm craving this, I begin dropping in and feeling concentrated, and I crave more. I crave more concentration, more freedom, more clarity. I'm kind of leaning towards it. It actually gets in the way of the concentration. And this is one that I now have an easy time noticing, and it happens a lot in my practice, not just with concentration, but with metta practice, where I'm offering phrases, but I'm not really feeling it in that moment, and I crave like that feeling of loving kindness, that gentleness when we're really able to drop in and feel it. I crave that. I want more of that. And it's only by letting those things go. It's kind of like a bit of a paradox in a sense. It's only by letting go of that sense desire, that desire to experience those things, those deeper concentrative states, the feeling of loving kindness, by letting go of that desire in practice, that we're able to actually experience them. So we can be aware of when sense desire is present, how it arises, how to give it up, and how to prevent from arising again. So we'll talk about some of the antidotes in dealing with it. One thing that's offered in the suttas is a phrase I love: guard the sense doors. Guard the sense doors. So the sense doors are, right, the ears, the eyes, the tongue for taste, the nose for smell, the body or skin for feeling, and the mind for thoughts. I have to say, with this sick mind, every time I've had to mention, that's the second time, the 6 sense doors or guarding the sense doors, I wondered if I repeated one or said 4 or 6. So pardon me if I made an error there. But we guard the sense doors. What does this mean? We don't go out chasing thoughts or sounds, right? We stay at the sense door. Think of what a guard does at a castle. They just stand there, right at the door. They don't run out and chase things. They just stand there. So when a sound comes in or a feeling comes in, a physical sensation, rest your awareness just right there at the body and feel the experience. Hear the sound. Smell the smell. Don't run out and chase it and get hooked in. It's about observing and staying kind of fixed in a sense, or stable. We can also investigate the experience of desire. What's underneath it? When we desire something like food, what's underneath it? Are we hungry? Are we bored? Are we crashing and need some sugar? What does it feel like to have sense desire, to want something? I find in something I can't often feel, honestly, in daily life, but I feel in meditation practice, is when I am in a moment of craving or sense desire, I may not physically be leaning forward, but I have this kind of felt sense of like leaning towards something. And then this instruction seems, again, a little paradoxical, but one of the things we can do with sense desire is to practice concentration. Because as we continue to practice concentration, we're able to stay with the experience we're having, to collect the attention and place it somewhere, and not have the mind kind of chase things out. So remember the 4 kind of instructions. Know when it's present or not. Know how it arises, what's going on with desire, what's underneath it, how to give it up. We can practice concentration and just bring the attention back. We can guard the sense door, just notice the actual experience. And how to prevent from arising again. Practice concentration. Perhaps make sure we're well fed before sitting. On to ill will, vyapada. So aversiveness, or pushing things away. A bit in a sense, the opposite of sense desire. And in a sense, the same thing. It's our reaction to unpleasant experiences. I think it's interesting that aversion or ill will can almost be understood as craving more pleasant or craving less unpleasant. So in a sense, it's a very similar quality. I heard a great quote from Ajahn Neb recently. I want to say it was in a Mary Stankovich talk, but I'm not sure. I think that's where it came from. Ajahn Neb says, everything we do is a move out of discomfort. And I just thought it was an interesting reflection that you could see everything we do as a move out of discomfort or a move towards something. But looking at this quality of ill will or this hindrance, we can understand everything as a move out of discomfort. When we're sitting in meditation and we scratch an itch, we're moving out of the discomfort of the itch. When we're sitting in meditation and we begin engaging in thoughts, we may be moving out of unpleasantness or discomfort in the body, or maybe boredom. And the same is true for daily life, right? We're thirsty and we take a drink. We're moving out of the discomfort of thirst. And that's not to say that drinking water is bad. We're sore or stiff and we get up and move in meditation. So it's not about moving out of discomfort necessarily as much as it's the quality of ill will or aversiveness. Can we move out of discomfort in a more loving and kind and mindful way? One of the things I do in my practice is when I notice I do have an itch while meditating, I work to notice the experience of it. So the physical sensation, the Vedana or feeling tone, that it's unpleasant, and then the mental reaction, something that I learned from a Mahasi Sayadaw book, of noticing the intention before the action. I intend to itch this to relieve myself of the discomfort. And instead of scratching the itch with reaction, kind of out of aversiveness, I do it very gently and with kindness. So again, we can notice the aversiveness when it's present or when it's not. The antidote is generally taught as metta or loving kindness, gentleness, to respond to the unpleasantness with this quality of gentleness and friendliness without hatred or ill will. There's also a commentary where it's recommended to reflect on the karma being created by acting or thinking with anger or hatred. So the little moments of aversiveness in meditation that get in the way of our concentration, maybe after the meditation period, we can reflect on the karma being created. How does that support our practice or liberation or not? And to keep it at bay, we can practice a little bit of metta or loving kindness. You might even try practicing metta or loving kindness towards your own thoughts or mind specifically. All right, the third is actually two, sloth and torpor. I don't think I've ever heard the word torpor used outside of Buddhism. Not necessarily a common word. Tinamida it is in Pali. And this is a drowsiness or dullness in our practice. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I almost fall asleep at least once a week in meditation practice. It happens. But it's not just full on falling asleep. It's this kind of lack of energy that we might experience in our practice. I remember sitting with Thanissaro Bhikkhu one time at Wat Metta, and him talking about the uninterested mind, a mind that's not interested in the subject of meditation, the breath or the metta phrases or whatever's going on, and how that can lead to like sleepiness or sloth and torpor, this boredom. And I've always found that to be very true and relevant for me personally. We also might experience sloth or torpor from out of aversiveness as a response to aversiveness, something unpleasant. We might experience it from overeating, right? We ate a huge lunch. It used to always happen to me on meditation retreats for so long. I would overeat a little bit at lunch, and then that's it. After lunch, just sloth and torpor the entire time. It might happen from undereating, right? We don't have enough calories to fuel our body, or maybe we didn't get enough sleep. So again, this isn't just to say that sloth and torpor are your fault, but just looking at the potential causes of it, to know when it's present or not, to know what causes it. Because as we know what causes it, we can begin to work with these things to better our concentration in our practice. The Buddha offered some specific antidotes to sloth and torpor. You can open your eyes. You can stand up. You can look toward the light. Don't walk towards the light, but you can look toward the light. Tug on your earlobes. And you can try walking meditation. And I'll just speak from my experience. When I'm really full of this hindrance and experiencing a lot of sloth and torpor, and I can't seem to shake it during a sitting period, I'll get up and do walking meditation because it brings some energy into the practice. And in my experience, what is needed when we have sloth and torpor is a little bit of joy and energy into the practice. So I'll either switch myself to walking meditation or I'll switch to some metta phrases to try to bring some lightheartedness to it. And of course, to look at these things in the bigger picture. What's causing the sloth and torpor? Are we not eating enough or not sleeping well? And I know that not sleeping well is not something that we can just notice and, oh, well, I'll sleep better tonight. It can be, some of us have chronic insomnia or have problems with food or whatever it may be. So I don't mean to imply that just by noticing it and knowing what the kind of root cause is frees us from it. But it does allow us to begin working on it, or at least to recognize the relationship. Next, we have restlessness and worry. I think that these are two qualities that can be understood, much like sloth and torpor, as a quality of the heart or mind and a quality of the body. So restlessness is more in the body. Worry is more of a heart or mental experience. And I know that worry or anxiety manifests in the body. But as it relates to these 5 hindrances, what's being taught is restlessness or worry in the mind or body. So this could be anxiety, come up as anxiety. It could come up as monkey mind, where the mind's bouncing around from one thing to another. I've heard it described as simply misplaced energy, which I absolutely love. I heard that just a few months ago, and I was talking to a small private group I led that I was hired. They hired me to come teach, and I used it, and so many people related to it. And I think I'm gonna use it a little more because that's what it is. That's what restlessness and worry really is. It's a misplaced energy. Right? We have the energy, but it's kind of, I don't know if misplaced is the right word, because it's not like we placed it on purpose, but an unconstrained energy that's been misplaced. I have a 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old, Eli, who is if you have kids, who's just the kind of archetype of misplaced energy. He's a little hyperactive or energetic, and just so often he has this misplaced energy, and we have to kind of rein him in. And I'm actually going to use him as an example in a moment when we get to the antidotes. But coming back to myself. So when we notice that we're in restlessness or worry, the first step, we also can notice or know how it arises. Again, it could be something we ate. Sometimes I have too much caffeine. I don't do that as much anymore. Maybe we didn't eat enough. Maybe we just have a lot going on with our work. What's giving rise to this restlessness and worry? For me, it's one of the things that I try to do daily is get some exercise. It has dramatically changed my experience of chronic depression and ADHD. It's just over the last 5 years, I make a point to exercise almost every single day. And I'm not talking go for a 10-mile run. Sometimes I just walk the loop of my neighborhood. When I don't do that, I find I have more restlessness in the body and a little bit more anxiety or worry in the brain, in the mind. Another kind of quality of this restlessness and worry is an unwise attention to thoughts, right? When the thoughts do come up, the monkey mind, we kind of get hooked in really hard. And that makes it hard for concentration as we're trying to stay focused on, say, the breath. If we're hooking into the thoughts, they pull us right off so fast. So there's a few antidotes traditionally offered. I'm going to offer one additional one. The traditional antidotes offered in the commentaries are to spend time with people who possess dignity. I don't have much to elaborate on that. I think that that's your discernment, right? But the idea is, as we surround ourselves with people with dignity, we can live with less restlessness and worry. We can practice concentration, of course, so the mind doesn't kind of get hooked in. We can practice equanimity to allow the thoughts to be. And to me, that's really the key in meditation practice with restlessness and worry. Can I be equanimous with the situation, with the fact that the mind is doing that or the body is doing that? Not to stop it from happening necessarily, but just by being equanimous, having equanimity by saying, right now it's like this. Right now there's monkey mind and there's restlessness. And I'm noticing that it's happening, and I'm not going to hook into them. Just by doing that, it kind of weakens its power. And then the kind of other thing I'll offer is to release energy or soothe. So in meditation, there's sometimes when I'm really restless or anxious, and I'll get up and do walking meditation. Again, to release some energy, or even kind of like shake out my shoulders. And as far as soothing goes, I'll put my hand on my heart and take some breaths, maybe offer some phrases of self-compassion. Just coming back to Eli on this, I think I may have told this story already on a recent episode, but Eli often gets just kind of a lot of energy, and like, kids do. And in a lot of moments, like, we have a backyard where he can play in the jungle and whatnot, and we have solutions for it at home, right? Like, let's go outside, let's get some energy out. But sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes we're on an airplane, or we're in someone's apartment, or whatever it may be. So as Eli's energy begins growing and becoming this misplaced energy, where he's kind of not causing any destruction or anything like that, but the energy's misplaced. We've asked him, what do you need in that moment? Because he doesn't really listen when we say, like, Eli, calm down. No one listens when they're told to calm down, myself included. So that doesn't work. So we asked him, what do you need? And he said, perhaps I need either to release the energy, or maybe I need a hug in those moments. Awesome. This kid's almost 5. He suggested 2 amazing things. And this was like a couple weeks ago. Turns out they work. The other night we were reading books before going to bed with his little brother in the bedroom, and he had like a little bit too much energy for book time and mellowing out. So we said, Eli, what do you need right now? You want a hug or you want to release some energy? He said, I want to release some energy. So he did that. He like ran around the house without anything, like no ball in his hand, not playing a game, just literally ran around the house. Came back and had released the energy. And then just yesterday, he was very excited because his brother Arlo's birthday is tomorrow. And so he's like just really excited. And he got a little overexcited about like decorations and was trying to take out the presents that we have hidden away. And we didn't want Arlo to see them. Anyways, I said, Eli, what do you need right now? Because this energy is causing a little bit of harm. And he said, I think I need a hug. And he came in, like gave me a big hug, and then kind of went on with his way. So I think these 2 practices of releasing energy and soothing in some way, soothing the mind and body, can go a long way. All right, the last one is doubt. When I first heard the hindrances, this is the only one that rubbed me the wrong way personally, because as soon as we start talking about doubt, that means some discussion of words like faith is coming in, right? The opposite. And I have a poor relationship with that word, my own judgments and suffering around it. As I've continued to practice, I've found this hindrance of doubt to be, or the teaching to be quite insightful and powerful in my practice. So there's kind of multiple ways, or many ways doubt can manifest. We might doubt ourselves. We'll talk about practice for a moment. We might doubt ourselves in practice. Am I doing this right? Or am I capable of doing this? Is my brain even capable? I've had so many people come to our groups or meet in person and say, I don't think my brain's capable of focusing on the breath. And the truth is, of course, when everyone starts meditation, it's really hard. If you could already concentrate perfectly on the breath, you wouldn't need meditation. So we doubt ourselves. We doubt our teachers. It's not to say that discernment isn't a useful quality, because it is. We doubt the teachings. Again, discernment is a useful quality. Some wise judgment of what's useful and true in our own experiences. We doubt the experiences we're having. And I kind of think doubt comes up in many ways. I've definitely shared this story a lot of times, but I sat, probably 7 or 8 years ago now, probably 8 or 9 years ago, I sat a 30-day meditation retreat at Spirit Rock in Northern California. And I can't even remember who all the teachers were that year, but James Barras was my individual teacher who I did individual sessions with. And I think at one point, I want to say it was 2 weeks in, so I'd dropped in decently well. I went to my interview, and I don't even remember what the topic was or what I was doing this with, and it doesn't matter. But I walked into the interview, you get once a week, maybe you get 10 or 15 minutes to talk with a teacher, otherwise you're in silence meditating. I walked in, I told him of some experience I was having in meditation, and then began to explain why it might be and what's happening, and all these things, how it's arising, how to get rid of it, all these kind of different things. And James Barras said just something that aggravated me so deeply in the moment. He said, "Why don't you stop trying to figure it out and just be with that experience? Just be present with it and notice how it feels. Let go of the figuring it out or analyzing it." He identified that as the hindrance of doubt in my practice and encouraged me to just trust being present with it, that the insight or understanding would come. I walked out of that interview, and I had doubt about my teacher and the teachings, in addition to doubt with my own experience. But the truth is, I don't know if a teacher has ever said something that impacted my practice so quickly and so intensely. I went to meditate in the days after that, and when I noticed this kind of mind that wanted to figure something out in meditation or solve something, or I won't even say overanalyze, just analyze something, I really tried to just let it go, kind of label or note it as doubt, and just let it go and come back to the practice. The biggest antidote to doubt is taught as just noticing that doubt is present. Often just noticing that doubt is present is enough to kind of take its power away. And doubt can come up in all these different ways, and it may manifest differently. So we don't have to actually have a conscious or explicit thought of doubt. It might be this overanalyzing, right? It might be trying to figure something out. It might be sitting in metta practice and thinking, these phrases are dumb and not helping me. I'm going to switch to a mindfulness practice. Outside of meditation, one of the teachings in the commentaries on dealing with doubt is to reflect on the benefits of practice. So in this case, how does just being with something, just being with the breath and not analyzing it, how does that benefit us? How have we seen it benefit our mind and body and our freedom? And then, of course, faith or conviction. I don't think the Buddha ever called for us to have blind faith or blind conviction or blind trust. But I think of this encouragement as like, okay, I'm going to try what James Bear has told me. When I notice the mind trying to figure something out or overanalyze it, like, oh, I'm experiencing this. This is working with this foundation of mindfulness and this mental state. And instead of just being with it and experiencing it, I'm going to give that a try. I'm going to have a little bit of faith. I only have to try it for a week. And then we come back to the interview and I can tell him that he was wrong and that he made me suffer more. And of course, not of course, but in this case, he wasn't. I came back to that interview and I probably cried 3 weeks into a meditation retreat and told him I think I told him at the time that was the most powerful thing a teacher said to me. I recognized the benefit of faith or conviction or trust in my teacher in that moment. And trust in the teaching of when the Buddha says to know something, he's not talking about this intellectual like knowing as if we read it in a book. I think it's Mary Stankovich who says there's a difference between, and she might have gotten it from somewhere else, I'm sure, but she says a lot, there's a difference between knowing something in our head and knowing it in our bones. The Buddha is instructing us to know these things in our bones. To know the breath and to know how something arises isn't to overanalyze. It's to know it firsthand by experiencing it. So I think that that's with all of the 5 hindrances, that's something worth understanding. And we'll kind of close on this thought that when the Buddha says, know when it's present and know when it is not, it's not a simple like intellectual noting as far as, oh, it's present or it's not, but knowing the experience, being familiar with it, recognizing how it feels. To know how it arises isn't just to reflect on what may have caused it, but to know it, to see the process, to experience it firsthand. So what it means to know how or why it arises is both to intellectually know, oh, doubt's arising because I'm not having the experience that I want to have, and to actually experience that kind of path all the way through. Me not having the experience I wanted and the aversion or clinging that comes, the craving, and then the doubt. To actually experience those things and what they're like. To know how we can be free of it isn't just to know intellectually what we can do to get rid of doubt, but to actually see, like in this example, when I do pay attention to just the experience and don't try to fix or solve, I can grow very familiar with the cessation of doubt. And to know how once it's gone from us, how to keep it at bay. Again, not just to know intellectually. Like outside meditation, I know that if I want to keep restlessness and worry away, I need to not have a second cup of coffee an hour before I meditate. Right? There's an intellectual understanding. The knowing in my bones is when I go to sit and meditate, I know that I am free from restlessness and worry caused by me choosing not to drink that coffee. So as we kind of work with these 5 hindrances, I don't think that we can only work with them in concentration practice. We can work with them in any meditation practice we're doing. Notice when they're present. We can work with them in daily life, right? To notice when sense desire or ill will or restlessness or worry or sloth or torpor or doubt are present. And to remember those 4 pieces. To know in our bones, in our brains, when they're present or not, how they arise, how we're freed from them, and how to keep them at bay. So that's that. We did it, even though I'm sick. I only had to pause to cough a few times. Hope it wasn't too noticeable. If you want to ask me a question, or Elizabeth a question for that matter too, you can email us at matthew@oneminddharma.com or visit us at oneminddharma.com. All the podcast episodes are there. If you are interested in working one-on-one, I do see people one-on-one. If you want to deepen your mindfulness or meditation practice, or want some more mindfulness-based counseling with things going on in your life, you can visit themindfulcounselor.me or oneminddharma.com/coaching. And then the new thing, or kind of revamped thing, is we're starting up our sitting groups again. I've been doing a lot of kind of private groups with people, which has been lovely. But I wanted to get back to a public, open, donation-based group available to all. So the link is oneminddharma.com/group. There's no like credit card form, or you won't be hit with like a bunch of donation buttons or anything like that. It's just an email list. You sign up, and then the week before the group, I'll send the link, the topic, and that's pretty much it. And then right like the day or two after the group, I'll send a link to the audio recording of the talk and meditation. I don't do video recordings during our groups just to protect people's privacy, because there's some other people will be seeing and not necessarily consent to that. But they'll be pretty straightforward. We'll have a short little check-in, a guided meditation, a relatively short talk, like a 15-minute talk, and then time for discussion or questions. And it's open to all. You don't need any meditation experience. We don't care where you are in the world, who you are. Everyone is welcome. There's a suggested donation of $5 to $10. But everyone is absolutely welcome. We don't want money to come in between you and the Dharma, or you and meditating. So again, that's oneminddharma.com/group. And I also have a post. We have a post on the website about the 5 hindrances. It's oneminddharma.com/5-hindrances. I'll put the link in the show notes if you also like to read things, to take information in. So awesome. Thank you. I have a talk for next week that someone requested on the 8 worldly winds. But if you do have a talk, which it just kind of reminded me, if you have a talk or topic you want covered, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to investigate it and make it into a talk. Thank you.